Two Women Talking is back. The next guest on Two Women Talking is going to be redundant because I recorded that one first, but then Aileyn had said she wanted to do the show and talk about Agatha, but then Bianca recorded first, so we're going to have some continuity burps. We're talking about Marvel stuff, so that's fine. You guys know, yeah, you know Aileyn well from the Spider-Man shit, Save the House stuff. Aileyn is even a bigger Marvel fan than I am. She's the biggest Marvel fan I know, and has an encyclopedic knowledge of the comics. So I thought, who better to come on and talk about Agatha All Along? So let's welcome to Two Women Talking, Aileyn. Yay!
Hey, thank you for that. I am so happy that's like the thing people are going to know me by.
Marvel. Yeah. I mean, the Spider-Man shit thing with the house just flew out of my mouth while I was recording.
I
And
I love that. You,
it,
you you know I love Spidey.
well, it was funny because people didn't go, oh, you're plugging the link so much. They were like, yeah, Spider-Man shit. Like that was the meme that people repeated and it made it fun instead of just another crowdfund. And I mean, that's the power of these iconic Marvel characters. But Agatha's different. You have to be
Yeah.
really hardcore to know Agatha from the comics. Even though she's been in it a lot, she was very connected to that very strange period in what was it, the 60s where they originally introduced Billy and Tommy?
The late 60s
Yeah.
going on 70s.
Yeah,
Yes.
67-ish.
Yeah.
And then they were just gone. And then they came back, and that's where all the very convoluted stuff that um Agatha All Along doesn't pull punches on. But let's not get there first. What did you think overall of the show?
Okay, overall, I was pleasantly surprised.
Hmm.
I know I'm a hardcore Marvel fan. Every Marvel show that has come up, to me, it has either been good or very good,
Right.
except for Secret Invasion.
Okay, even Echo?
Uh, yeah, even I didn't dislike Echo. It's not my favorite, but
Right.
I enjoy it.
Yeah,
Uh,
Secret Invasion just didn't come together. I mean, even on a technical level, they were using green screen sets because of scheduling issues. Like it was just a mess. But yeah.
Secret Invasion is going to go into the hall for the Marvel fans in the same bottom hole when we put One More Day or the bad part of the clone saga, the stuff that happened, but we are never going to talk about again.
Right. And
That's
that when the MCU is at its best, they fix or streamline those stories. I mean, was it Spider-Man 3 kind of did a riff on One More Day, or what was it? No Way Home?
No Way Home.
The
Yeah,
last one, yes, sort of did a riff on One More Day, but not nearly as infuriating. Like they learned, and Dan
yeah.
Slott still probably got a ton of money. But I mean, that's what I thought was interesting about Agatha. They just went for it. Not
Yeah.
only with Agatha, but also with, they're calling him Billy Maximoff, but he's always going to be Billy Kaplan to me.
Well, he says it himself. No, that woman is not my mother. My mother is Mrs. Kaplan.
Right. Yeah. And I did think it was cool that they went for both the Billy Maximoff and the Billy Kaplan origins. They did both.
Yeah,
They
and
they
I was very pleasantly surprised by that. I knew it was going to be good because Catherine Hahn is a marvelous actress.
yeah.
The cast is stoked with acting credits, singing credits, dramatic and comedy credits. So I knew it was going to be good. I knew I was going to like it, probably no matter what.
Hmm.
I was not ready for the show to be so good to justify me saying I like it, not just because I'm a Marvel fan, but to say I like it because it's probably one of the better show, if not the best Marvel show to date.
I agree. It was a good, if you don't know the stuff, you can still follow it, which
Yeah.
I never know how people who don't know the characters in advance respond to things because I'm like, oh, they're doing that. It's like, does this make sense to
No,
someone
no,
that
no. Yes. I go to that because, for background, I'm a huge Marvel fan. A big part of that is I have this tabletop RPG Chronicle of Marvel. I've been doing that for 16, 17 years now.
the same campaign,
The same campaign.
16, 17 years, your
Yes,
continuity is longer than the current Marvel continuity, Eileen.
that joke has been made. Yes.
That's not a joke. That's an observation. That is just
Yeah.
true.
So every Wednesday is both Comic Marvel Date when I read everything that is coming out this week,
Hmm.
and late afternoon I GM the campaign.
Right. And so
So
you're probably the way I am, the structure of the story matters so much because of that. 'Cause you know how important it is.
yes, precisely. So I'm a fan because both I like the characters very much. I grew up with them, and also by necessity because to me is documentation as a game master.
Hmm.
So I go through this with the people at my table. A lot of them are Marvel fans, but they are not always up to date. They haven't read the comics for so long, or they just read the one or
Hmm.
two comics and don't really know about the rest. So I get my perspective, I get your perspective, and the people talking about it on the Discord. And then I get the perspective from my most casual players who maybe know Spider-Man and a couple X-Men and nothing else. And they all told me I like Agatha, the series, because I know the little that I know, I can see it, but also I can follow it without knowing who is that or where did that character came from.
Yeah, and I think that not throwing too many existing characters from the comics was a smart idea. I mean, the supporting cast is so solid. There wasn't a
Yeah,
weak actor slash actress in the whole thing, but I mean, a lot of the supporting cast, like Lilia, Jen, Alice, Mrs. Hart is a holdover from WandaVision, but they it's interesting because they were self-referential, like you knew who they were because they retroactively set it up. Like you weren't supposed to know who they were, but they were tropes. So you
yeah,
could pick up, okay, Black Gwyneth Paltrow, okay, Kevin Smith movie character, okay, fortune teller lady. Great. You didn't need to know 25 years of comics lore to figure out what the heck was going on, which meant they could go all in on Agatha and Billy and really make it work.
yeah. And the supporting cast, they are characters. They are what my boyfriend calls the bottom list.
Yeah.
Uh, they are mentioned maybe once in an obscure comic from the 70s or the 80s.
Oh, so Mexican for D list is bottom list.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like the names are familiar. But they're radically purpose built for the show, which both within the show and you know, in the writing for people, spoilers to make it clear, the whole thing, well, mostly the
Kinda.
whole thing. We'll
Yes, yes,
pause
but
that
not
one.
kinda.
Not sort of, yes, the main plot is similar to WandaVision in that Billy created an elaborate spell to find his, well, brother. Tommy,
Yeah,
which
baby is
is
like his mama.
straight out of the comics.
Yes.
It's what I'm like, oh my God, they did the fact that he was Jewish. They did the fact that he's basically reincarnated. They're doing the hunt for Tommy. Like they hit every single major beat, except, well, yet for Hulkling. And right before we recorded this, the story broke
Uh,
same day that apparently the writers wanted to include Hulkling, but Marvel said no.
I have feelings about that.
I have feelings, but at the same time, I don't. I was kind of bummed that they just had Wanda and Vision together. You didn't see them fall for each other.
Yeah, that
Because,
was that
well,
was my thought too.
Joss Whedon can't do wholesome, but I want to see the wholesome with Billy and Hulkling. So I'm
Okay,
okay to wait. I'm okay to
okay,
wait. Yeah.
that is a very good argument actually.
Yeah,
Okay,
I want to see the meet. I want to see the meet cute. I want to see like they can do that in flashback in school or something like that. But I want to see them go from friends to lovers in a Young Avengers show, which they are. Oh my
Whee!
God. Can you even call it hinting at that this point? They're just flat out going, yeah, it's gonna happen eventually.
Big big neon sign on the road. Young
Yeah.
Avengers coming eventually.
Yeah. And so but the riskiness of the way they set up the Agatha story, I really like. I think part of the reason that people love it so much is because of that. They had an idea, they stuck with it. They knew it was risky, not everyone was going to get it. And so,
Yes,
the word of mouth on this show is the best for a Marvel show in God since
since Hawkeye probably or Miss Marvel.
maybe. And those didn't really translate into viewers either. But in
Yeah,
this
no.
and I think part of it was I feel bad for the whole Hawkeye thing because Hawkeye was just sort of there and that's not fair because he's a founding, member of the
Fun.
Avengers.
Yeah.
Um, it was sort of he was just the guy that Joss Whedon had turn evil because he had to copy the Straczynski scripts from the 80s because that's what he does. But enough about that. Um,
That's probably for another podcast.
yeah, I mean, not only was it good, because I think we can both agree that Ms.
Oh, it was
Marvel,
very good. Yeah.
yeah, but Ms. Marvel and Hawkeye were good too, but it
Yes.
didn't translate to viewers. Where
Um, I
and
have a theory. Um, and I've been talking about this with my boyfriend because ever since the show was announced, he
mhm,
was like, "Oh wow, they are making a show about Agatha.
right.
Cool, I guess." um, After it finished and after we were both like super happy about it, we've been
Mhm.
talking and he said something and I agree. The reason why Agatha was so good at one of the reasons is that they had an idea that was based on comic stuff,
Mhm.
but it wasn't like a one-on-one literary interpretation. Like they didn't take a book and said, okay, this would make it TV show. They had an idea. They based it on comic characters and comic knowledge, but they did their own thing and they supported the ideas, the main plot, with stuff from the comics, as
Right.
opposed to taking a whole story from the comics and chopping into pieces and putting it on screen.
That's a good point because I think that was one of my kind of it maybe disappointments. It's my fault because I set expectations, but I was expecting Wanda Vision to be more of a pastiche, and it
Mhm.
turned out to be 80% House of M,
Yeah,
essentially. And
minus
that,
the mutant.
yeah, and so there wasn't enough vision in WandaVision. for me. Now we'll see if
That's good.
yeah, we'll see if they fix that with the Vision show. They're they're more bound to plot elements that they can't get out of in that one. And I think that's another thing that made Agatha do well. Now, to be clear, before I say it does well, because someone will nerd check me on this, it's not one of the top rated MCU Disney Plus shows. However, it was so much cheaper to make that the return on investment is really solid. That's why when
I
people
was,
talk about how successful it is, that's what they're
yeah, I
talking about.
was surprised about how not as I'm not going to say cheap, not expensive it was. I was expecting like a huge amount of dollars. I didn't know they had like basically peanuts for budget compared to, once again, Secret Invasion.
Right. And that's part of the reason I thought it worked. It was a television show and it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed to be a television show.
Mm-hmm.
It was what it was. It let the characters and the writing carry it, not a ridiculous amount of special effects that took bloody forever to make. That's part of the issue with some of those shows, right? The special effects take so long that they get into, for instance, the production crunch on She-Hulk,
Yes.
that harmed the eventual. I mean, I thought She-Hulk was great, but there was a crunch. There was that problem with the CGI in the trailer. And if you're going to do CGI, the CGI has to be good. If you're,
Yeah, the CGI in She-Hulk is definitely the weakest point of the
yeah.
show.
And the plastic leaves on Agatha All Along, to me, is sort of the tangible detail that is why that show is so good.
The whole the painted backgrounds,
That
uh,
too.
yes, I love it.
Yeah.
It's also better for your cast to be acting with stuff they can tangibly touch and interact with, as opposed to a green ball with markings.
Yeah, agreed. I think so. It but the fact that they just were happy to make a TV show. I don't know if you saw the old Wonderful World of Disney
I
TV
did,
shows.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, they were like movies of the week or a combination of things, but they were just, afternoon entertainment, but they were solid for what they were. They weren't, Agatha wasn't trying to make a 6-hour movie. They actually made a little mini series. And
yes. That is also a good point, and people have been talking about it, about the episode. It's finally a TV show, not a Holda's movie split into tiny segments,
yeah,
because movies need to be movies. You can feasibly cut a large movie into a bunch of 30-minute segments, because pacing doesn't work like that.
right. Yeah. Well, and it didn't have the third to fourth episode slump that Marvel series are pretty known for. Uh,
Yes.
I think because they structured it of every character got her episode. And
Yes, and other than the first episode is probably the slowest,
yeah,
but that's why they had the first and second episode at the same time.
though I think I'm gonna drop a hot take right now because I'm me. I
Okay.
am about 85% invested in this one. So 15% jokes, but Zack Snyder should watch the beginning of Agatha All Along to learn how to do an effective getting the team together sequence.
Oh my God.
Cause
I don't know if that's a hot take. I agree with it. You know how I feel about Zack Snyder.
way to set up every character, and you were allowed to not like them. You know,
Yes.
when you've got Black Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, there's that particular character, Jennifer Kale. They
Yes.
do so much. Like someone at Aeon Levansan's inner visions must be going like, who talked? Because everything with the Oshun pink and the candles and even the part where she's like screaming and breaking down because they do that in these
Yes.
witchcraft inspired women's retreats. They
Uh,
have them like
mental zen retreats, yes.
yeah, they have them do the screaming, crying meltdown, so they can
Punch into a pillow.
right. And like the really, really over the top screaming and crying and all of that. That is what they do at those retreats. And it was things like that where it's like, all right, they're being campy and they're having fun with it. And it was almost equal parts the bullshit associated with witchcraft, but there was enough knowledge of the real stuff that I was
Yes,
like, I felt so nerdy, Aileyn, when the tarot cards came up, especially the Three of Swords. I'm like, that's the heartbreak
right?
card.
Yes.
Yeah. And everybody just outs themselves of, oh, you were really into tarot at some point if you're calling the cards as they come down. And they were the accurate depictions of the cards. They didn't fudge any of the meanings for the plot.
They they not only were accurate to the cards, they were accurate in the way that Agatha was messing up the
Yeah.
cards.
Oh, the and what I loved about that is that they let her seem. One person in the Discord said Agatha's been kind of useless this whole time before the
Oh, yes,
finale.
she's a con woman.
Well, and that's the thing that was all deliberate. And the first episode, I thought Catherine Hahn's being really hammy. The Twin Peaks style cop thing. I'm like, she's being really overacting here.
Super extra.
And it was hats off to her. It was very clear it was a deliberate choice, not just bad.
Yes,
But
she's very good to convey, which has to be hard. It has to be hard, one, to act, and two, to act like you are bad acting
yeah,
to
it
hide something.
yeah,
Yes,
it's really hard to act badly when you have spent a lot of time learning how to not act badly.
yes,
And it wasn't bad. It was just very over the top. That entire scene as the sheriff was sort of the wink she did in WandaVision.
yes.
And, retroactively, we find out that that's her reeling. Well, I interpret it as that's her reeling Billy in.
Oh,
Right.
okay,
Because
that's very good actually.
she's in control there, right? She's doing the con.
Yes,
Whereas as once they get to the, oh my God, I'm gonna do it so that it's stuck in everybody's head, the down, down, down the road on the witch's road
thank
scene.
you for that.
I don't care who you are, you can't get through that sequence without that song getting stuck in your head. It is so catchy.
Yes, it is. I love it. It's such an earworm.
Well, they borrow from those almost like the Joni Mitchell folk rock sound. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's why it was all 70s because they were pulling from that. Pull up Joni Mitchell or Buffy St. Marie or any of that stuff. You'll hear where that song was inspired in the, as they call it, the most popular version of that song. Like they telegraphed so much on that show to the point that it's worth a second watch just to
Yeah.
see it with fresh eyes all over again. Like they knew exactly what they were doing, which is apparently a big difference from WandaVision, where they kept rewriting the ending. Did you
Well,
did you see this?
yeah, I saw.
Yeah.
It was also the first show they did,
Yeah.
and it shows. It came out really good for what they had to work with, and having no experience translating film to TV with that character. uh, Agatha is obviously the improved, better version of that.
I do think they learned in that they still did the format stuff, right? The
Yes.
period format stuff, but they didn't get mired in it. And then they knew what that ending was going to be. It wasn't, is Doctor Strange going to be there? Is he not going to be there? Is he going to be there? And it almost is like, we should have gone with Doctor Strange because there is no whiff of, well, if there's a boy there, it's going to make Agatha seem less strong. No one was worried about that on this
No,
show.
it also makes it retroactively it made Stephen Strange look like a very peaceful sorcerer supreme
Yeah.
because yeah, a witch doing a whole heads and warping reality and holding a town as hostage. It's kind of what you're supposed to be
Yeah.
keeping the people protected from.
Yeah. The fact that he wouldn't show up is weird.
Yeah, like the Santa Sanctorum has like 5 alarms
Yeah.
and they should all be ringing and telling you to go, but
Yeah.
decisions.
And that's what the whole, I mean, nobody would have known what was going on with Billy because nobody knew he was on the map. So that's a little more believable. But also, Catherine Hahn's performance in that scene where the door opens.
Oh my God, that was okay. We should probably talk about Billy and the whole heads before we go into it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I suppose do a quick recap from Comic Billy for the people who don't know. Um, Billy from the comics, eventually Wiccan, is the son, kinda yes, but not really, but also yes, from Wanda Maximoff and Vision,
Right. Who,
and he has magic powers, but he's unlike the Sorcerer Supreme and the rest of the magic users. He's not a sorcerer per se. He's kind of a god of magic.
yeah, he's telepathic as well as can do just stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he starts off by being telepathic and by having energy powers. Initially, he models his persona around being a younger Thor.
Yes.
Um,
Yo, that's right. He tries on different personas before he settles on Wiccan, doesn't he?
yeah, because he
Yeah.
can only do the magic with the lightning.
Right.
So if they're going to be the Young Avengers, he's going
Right.
to be the Thor. He briefly, for like half a comic, goes by the name as Guardian.
Asgardian. That's right. I should have looked this
Before
up before, but
Kate
yeah.
Bishop, bless her,
Yeah.
tells her, "Hey, you are a teen boy and you are gay. Maybe
That's
don't
right.
choose the name as Guardian."
That's right. That's right. Yeah, he's kind of figuring it out, but he's
Yes.
also I'm gonna get this completely wrong, but it's gonna be in the ballpark. He either gets pulled down, like his soul gets taken by Mephisto, or it was retconned to Billy and Tommy were always sort of created by Mephisto, and then Mephisto took them away, and then they escaped hell, right? Or something like that in the comics.
Okay. Um, Close. So Wanda does she's the most incomprehensible member of the Avengers.
Yeah.
She goes off Mary's visions. She wants to have basically the American dream
Right.
life. She wants to have a husband, white picket fence, the whole thing.
Like all good Eastern Europeans.
Yes.
Right.
But obviously Vision is a synthesoid.
Right.
So she says, whatever, magic, hello, we have children. Eventually, it's revealed that through Agatha, these children weren't just made with her magic, but with the fragment of another sorcerer guy, not worth mentioning. The point is that that guy, the fragments that came from him weren't really from him. They were parts of Mephisto.
Right. That was that terrifying frame with the two babies for his hands, right?
Yeah,
That's the
that
guy.
was it.
One of the most
Mr. Pandemonium, yes.
yeah, one of the most disturbing frames in comics ever.
Yes. Eventually, the Avengers disassemble. Wanda goes crazy. House of it's confirmed, and she goes full crazy
Yeah.
because Janet, after having one too many mimosas, tells her, "This is true. I am sorry." Tells her, "Oh, hey, good luck. It was good that those children of you weren't really real children, no?" She goes crazy. She watches reality. She makes the house of and where she has children, and eventually it all comes crashing down.
Right. Right.
The thing
And
is,
yeah.
Mephisto tries to take the pieces of his soul back,
That's
but
right.
since they weren't really his anymore, because Wanda changed them into his children's, and she put her magic and her love as a mom.
That's right.
And they had lived and they had experiences. They weren't 100% soul shards of Mephisto. So the universe fits that by having them reincarnated into Tommy and Billy.
Right.
Into different families.
Yeah. If you guys are all confused, that's okay. It's a Marvel Comics maxi series designed to reset status quo and possibly kill a bunch of characters, but not as many characters as No More Mutants when they did the exact same thing with the X-Men.
Yeah,
Right.
it's meant to be confusing.
Yeah, it when it's comics and you can go back and forth and pull back the old issues, it's easier to follow. That's why reading the books, you don't get the same experience as you do reading the synopsis. But
yes,
this gives you an idea of how true they actually were to the backstories of these characters, because the only other character in comics I can think of that has as messed up a backstory as Billy Kaplan does is Donna Troy in DC
yes.
Comics. Like, it's just they what and huh? You know, it's just sort of like, what were they doing?
At some point, you just gotta shut your eyes and say, "Sure,
Right.
cool."
Right. It was some cool splash pages, bro. And
yeah,
that's what I thought was amazing about Agatha All Along is the format gave you all of that. Like, if people hadn't read the comics and seen the show, they're like, yeah, that's pretty much what they did.
yeah. And if you read the comics, you know, oh, they actually did their research. This is a tribute to that. This is mentioning that.
Yeah. And
So,
they didn't just do their research, they clearly loved it.
yes. And if I say so myself, I think they did it in some places better.
Oh, agreed.